Hey, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming out on this snowy morning. We didn't know if it was just going to be the choir or us. And welcome to all those who are watching online or those who are watching this recording later online. I'm Caryn Josephson, and I'm the chair of our Tanzania Partnership Committee. And as mentioned in the early part of the service, today we are lifting up partnerships at Prince of Peace. And for the adult forum today, I'm going to focus on a very active partnership that we have with Gumbay Parish and Vikangwa parishes in Gumbay, Tanzania. Our partnership with Gumbay was formed in 2002 and Vikangwa was 2020. And I'll share a little bit more about that as we go. This is really a celebration of these partnerships. Normally on this Sunday, I'd be frantically in the kitchen getting ready for the Tanzania dinner, but COVID. So hopefully you've had a chance to try some chai and mandazis, and we'll have another a chance to share a dinner at some point later in the future. So first of all, Bega is a partnership between congregations and the St. Paul Area Synod. Bega means shoulder to shoulder, which means we partner together. And it really is a life-changing relationship between the Iringa Diocese in Tanzania and the St. Paul Area Synod. We do joint ministry, we proclaim the gospel of Christ together, we extend Christian hospitality, and we strengthen relationships with one another. So first of all, this is our morning geography lesson. So Minnesota, we're in the United States, and Tanzania is on the continent of Africa. In terms of the continent of Africa, Tanzania is on the east coast towards the center. It's actually right underneath the equator. So we've basically got 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of nighttime when we go to visit there. Within Tanzania, Dar es Salaam is the largest city. That's usually where we fly into. And Iringa is in the center. It's called the Southern Highlands. Mount Kilimanjaro, the Serengeti, they're the northern part of Tanzania, and that's where a lot of the tourists go. But we go into Iringa, which is in the center, and Iringa is about the same elevation, roughly, as Denver. So you can see it's very high. This is a picture of the Iringa Diocese. This is a little bit outdated, but this shows the whole area that the Iringa Diocese, which is the equivalent of our St. Paul Area Synod, supports. And Iringa is in the center here, and the town of Gumbay is way down at the bottom. And this shows many of the partnerships that have been formed here. So just gives you a little bit of an idea of where Gumbay is. And these are just a couple of pictures of what the village looks like. This is the Gumbay Church. This is their main street. This is Pastor Tuwele at Gumbay, and you can kind of see it's very hilly, and there's farmlands. The church is also nestled between two cell phone towers, so we've got great cell phone reception whenever we go there. And the exciting news is that it's primarily been dirt road most of the way to get from Iringa over to Gumbay, and we just now found out that the road from the nearest main town to Gumbay has now been paved. So we're not going to have adventures of getting stuck as much anymore, but we're excited about that. The Bega partnership is built on 3 pillars, which are prayer, presence, and projects. And our partners would probably say that prayer is the most important part. When we form our covenant relationship, we agree to pray for each other, and we do regularly, both as congregations as well as individual prayer partners. Presence, we also agree that as circumstances allow, that we will travel to visit each other. So Prince of Peace has made 9 official delegations to Gumbay since our start in 2002, and there have been a couple of other individual trips. So Lee and Sandy Poppy have made several trips. Gus and Ann Haugen have each traveled there, and Tom and Beth Hansen as well. So we've had the presence. Now with COVID, we haven't been able to travel. We should have gone this year. But instead, we've been able to have a couple of Zoom calls with our partners. You'll see more about that later. And we also, the technology is now good enough that we're able to have regular email conversations with them, which has been a real blessing. And then the third pillar are projects. So we jointly share projects, and you'll hear a little bit more about some of those a little bit later. With Bega Bega, the whole heart is really a congregation-to-congregation partnership. So we're partnered with 2 congregations. Other churches within the St. Paul Area Synod are partnered with other congregations in the Iringa Diocese, and that really forms the heart. But as people have gone over there and seen needs, there have been different other needs identified that have risen, and they've become a set of affiliate partners. So these are other groups that help support initiatives in Tanzania as well. So for example, Prince of Peace is involved in most of these. Friends of Huruma is the orphanage that Pastor Betsy mentioned in her prayers. Iringa Hope provides microfinance as well as agricultural cooperative. Both Kenton Olson and I are on the board of directors for Iringa Hope. It's a great organization. Millions of Trees, we've collected nickels to help purchase tree seedlings. They're very interested in creating seedlings for timber that are fast growing, as well as things like avocado trees. Radio Faraha is a radio station that provides worship, gospel music, devotions, but it also provides education and training on things like microfinance, economic development, hygiene and sanitation. Right now they're talking about COVID and the importance of good sanitation and the importance of getting vaccinated if they're able to. Shoulder to Shoulder has developed a hospital, and there's a nursing school there now. St. Paul Partners works on safe drinking water initiatives, and Day of Grace provides health care, wellness care, and mental health care in a day for pastors and their families. And Tom and Beth Hansen, who are former members of Prince of Peace, organized that and started that. So Prince of Peace has a lot of tentacles into all of these wonderful affiliates. So I mentioned presence and that the fact that we weren't able to go recently. And I want to take a little bit of a step back before I go into the updates and tell you a little bit about how the congregations are structured over in Tanzania. There's typically one main parish that's served by one or more pastors, and then there are remote preaching points. Transportation is an issue. It's hard for people to get to church every Sunday, and so they will have remote satellite churches called preaching points that are served by evangelists, which are trained lay leaders. And then the pastor will go from preaching point to preaching point. Vikangwa was one of our preaching points, and they grew to such an extent that they were able to form their own congregation. So in order to form their own parish, they need to have a certain number of members. They need to have a certain amount of donations to make sure that they'll be financially viable. They need to have a church building, and the Vikangwa Preaching Point building did qualify as that. And then they need to provide a good house for their pastor. So think of the old parsonage concept. They need to provide a parsonage for the pastor. When we visited in 2019, when we visited the Vikangwa Preaching Point, we heard that they were intending to split off, and for the house, they showed us a house that was really close to the church that somebody had already built that they were able to purchase. And so they've been working on renovations to bring that up to standards. So in 2020, Vikangwa became their own parish. They had the installation. They now have their own pastor, Pastor Mdegela, and we were able through email to express our intent to become their partners as well. Sometimes when a preaching point spins off, the partner congregation says, you know, we really can't support 2 parishes, and they become unpartnered, but we couldn't let them go. So we have now a covenant relationship with Vikangwa. They have 556 members. So on October 13th, we had a Zoom call with, first of all, Vikangwa, and then Bumble and Gumbay. They all piled into Bumble and Gumbay's van. They came into Iringa for a Zoom call with us. So we spent 2 hours with our partners. So first of all, it was Vikangwa, and they have 556 members. They have 4 preaching points. So Vikangwa is a preaching point. Mifugo was a Bomolongombe preaching point that moved over now to Vikangwa. And then they have 2 new preaching points, Mlandegi and then Muhu. Muhu is the one preaching point that does not yet have an evangelist. They shared strengths, some successes. So successes they mention are the strength of the partnership, not only with us, but also with Bumble and Gumbay. They're considered to be a daughter church, and so the two congregations partner very closely together. They're also happy that they now have a couple of students that are sponsored in Form 1, which is the entry point. They have new members, and they also have been doing some building projects to renovate the pastor's house to install things like electricity and plumbing. Some of the challenges is that there's always the need for more scholarships. They need some transportation. They need a church building for the Mlandegi preaching point, and they're looking for projects to help generate income. Some of their priorities are providing scholarships. They want to finish the pastor's house, once again, the church at Mlandegi, and they want to build a business center. This is in partnership with Bumble and Gumbay. During our call with them, they shared with us the Bible verse Philippians 4:6. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. They have a new pastor. He's fresh out of seminary. He's great, and he just recently got married. So over the past year, a lot of changes for him and the Vikangwa parish. After we talked to Vikangwa, then we had our Zoom call with Bumble and Gumbay. Bumble and Gumbay is, we signed the covenant with them in 2002 on a trip that Lee and Sandy Poppy and Bill and Jean Kanak took, where the official covenant was signed. Bumble and Gumbay currently has 5 preaching points now. They have Bumble and Gumbay, Wanzala, Ilole, Nyamatanga, and Mangalale. Mangalale was new when we went in 2019. Some of the successes are education. They shared with us that since we've started this, 92 students have gotten scholarships. More about on that later. They've also had a number of building projects, so things like church buildings. We've provided housing for pastors and the evangelists, and there's other building projects that are in the works. Also, we've provided transportation, so bicycles for evangelists. We provide a motorcycle or a piki for the pastor, and then we help provide some funds that allow them to purchase a church van. Some of the successes another success is the close partnership. At the end of the call, we actually shared that both of us are kind of proud of our relationship. It's a really strong relationship. There's a lot of love and a lot of connection, and we're trying not to be too prideful, but we're really happy with the way our partnership works. They have a lot of priorities. They've got wonderful plans. So first of all, they have education as a priority, including vocational education for students like teaching certificates, masonry, electricians, drivers. Driver is a special vocation within Tanzania, a very important one. They're also working on a business center. This is new since we've been there. They're planning to build, and basically you almost kind of think of it as a strip mall. So it's a long building that will have, eventually it will have like 15 storefronts. And with the new road that's going to be better to get into, that should hopefully generate some income. They're going to start with 3 storefronts and partnering with Vikangwa on that. They do have a laptop that we brought them a few years ago and a typewriter that they purchased, but they'd like to purchase another computer and a photocopier to help simplify. The church, with the road, the church is actually kind of in the way of the road, and so they're actually going to replace the church with a new modern church, so that's in their plans. They also built a new house for the pastor that we got a chance to stay at in 2019. They're going to take the old pastor's house and they want to turn that into a guest house for people to stay when they're in town. The Mangalali preaching point needs to have a building, and they've created the foundation for that now, and bricks. They want to increase the participation in the Iringa Hope, so the SACOS is microfinance. The AMCOS is agricultural cooperative. That's been going very well for them, and they want to increase that. They want to plant trees, including timber and avocado. They want to provide water for Nyamatanga, which is the most remote. It's really, really high up. It's a gorgeous area, but they desperately need water there. They do have electricity for the evangelist house, and that's solar. I'm going to be curious to see where they can get the water from, because it's very high up. We've got stories we can tell you about Nyamatanga. It's a great place. And then finally, they'd like to get motorcycles, pikis, for the evangelists. So they have a lot of plans. The Bible verse that they shared with us is John 17:21, that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. Now, as I mentioned, normally on this day, we'd be doing our Tanzania dinner. And the primary goal of our Tanzania dinner is to raise funds for scholarships. Bega has a really strong scholarship program that's synod-wide, and it falls into a couple of different categories. So first of all, our secondary school scholarships. So this would be like the equivalent to junior high and high school, mostly at boarding schools. This is a partner congregation to partner congregation initiative. So every year, around about this time, congregations tell the St. Paul Area Synod how much money they have available for scholarships for their partner congregation. And then the partner congregations then figure out how to divvy up those funds. Orphans might receive 100% scholarship. Families that need a little bit of extra financial help, they might get like a 25% or a 50% or a 75%. So they help determine where the schools are, which students are, based on need and based on academic ability. The St. Paul Area Synod, we found this out yesterday morning, every year sends 1,100 students, or now they're up to like 1,100 students that are sponsored through this program, and that's $300,000 annually. It's also a cash economy, so it's big stacks of money that get divvied out to these schools. The way the scholarships work is there's first 4 years are forms 1 through 4. At the end of form 4, they take a national exam. They also graduate then, and it's roughly the equivalent to a sophomore in high school. If the student passes the national exam, which is very difficult, then they're eligible to go on to forms 5 and form 6. And if they pass exams after Form 6, that puts them on a university track. If they don't pass Form 4 or Form 6, or if the desire is there, there's still the opportunity for technical programs. So technical programs also fall under these secondary school scholarships. In the past, Prince of Peace has provided scholarships for some teaching certificates, nursing certificates, electricians, drivers, masonry. So it's also a great program. And then debuting yesterday at our annual Fall Festival was a new documentary on scholarships. They're putting a few final edits on that, but once that's available, we'll make that available to Prince of Peace through the website and the Facebook, so everybody can see it. It's a great documentary, giving more information about the program and its impacts. We also learned yesterday that if you're giving a scholarship to a student, a lot of times there's extended families, and so orphans may go to live with an extended family. If there's a scholarship for one orphan, you don't just pay that scholarship for that orphan. The orphan's going to go to school. They're going to go on to get that good education. They're going to get a better job. They're going to send the money back from others in the same extended family. So you're not just helping one person, you're helping many students by this, because of the way their culture works. In addition, a couple of other programs, there's a scholarship equity program. So I mentioned earlier, not all congregations in Iringa have a partner. And so there's a real need for students at those congregations as well. So there's a scholarship equity program, which is a pool of money that then gets divvied out to students at the congregations that don't have a partner. And then finally, now that there's all these secondary school student graduates, there's a need for post-secondary scholarships, so college and university. And so this is a pool of money that the Iringa Diocese and Bega use to accept applications for scholarships, and then there's a vetting process where students come and present what they'd like to study, and those scholarships get divided out. So Prince of Peace. For the 2021 school year, first of all, an average scholarship is about $400. And when we think about a scholarship, we don't just think about scholarship for this year, we think about scholarship for up to 6 years. Because you don't want a student to start in Form 1 and then next year kind of go, oh, yep, sorry, no money anymore. So when we're planning out our scholarships, we think in terms of 4 to 6 years. This year, our average scholarship ranged from anywhere from $77 to $682. There were 22 students, and then evangelist training. So there's an extension program for evangelists. There were 20 students from Bumble and Gumbay and 2 from Vikangwa. Some of the Boma students were probably they're probably part of Vikangwa and Mifugo preaching points as well. We had 15 students in the first 4 forms and 7 in forms 5 and 6, which is exciting. 16 girls, so really strong emphasis on education for girls, and 6 boys. 9 different schools, and 3 of the schools are supported by the Iringa Diocese, so that the Iringa Diocese manages those 3 schools. In terms of pictures here, we have our 2 students from Vikangwa. They're at Bumble and Gumbay Secondary School. We have about 11 students from Bumble and Gumbay at Bumble and Gumbay Secondary School. We have 1 student at Image, and then 2 students at Pomeran. And then there's others. These are not all the students we sponsor, but that's the ones that are at the Iringa Diocese schools. So in addition to that $8,000 last year, we also sent over $1,000 for the Scholarship Equity Fund. We also intentionally do at least a tithe of the scholarships to Boma and Vikangwa. We tithe that out to the Scholarship Equity Fund. And we also provided $1,000 for post-secondary scholarships. In terms of some success stories and thank yous, so I mentioned this in our blog article, but on our Zoom call, when they shared that there were 92 students, they said, most of them have performed well, succeeded, and came later to be pastors. Some of them now are evangelists, some of them are teachers, some of them are lawyers. We have the community social workers, we have the electrical engineers, technicians, we have the drivers, we have masonry, and et cetera. Some of them, they also continue with school at secondary level and colleges and universities. And the letter here is a letter we received in July from one of the students at Pomeran. She's in Form 4, and she said on her side she's doing well. Her aim of the letter is to give thanks, and what I thought was particularly touching in here is that even though you have COVID pandemic disease in your country, you are still paying school fees, and I thank you for that. And we're praying that this pandemic will go away. So God bless you and all your activities and sending greetings. So a really special letter. And then we have a lot of different success stories of students over the years, but in some past, I've mentioned the Mponzi children a couple of times. So Pastor Mponzi was a former pastor. He unfortunately passed away when his wife was pregnant with their 4th child. And then she, after the baby was born, and about a year later, she also passed away, leaving the children as orphans. The oldest girl, Agape, was in secondary school at the time, receiving a scholarship from us. She completed that and then requested from us funds to get her teaching certificate, which she did, and so she's now a primary school teacher. The youngest, Enzi, was a baby and went to live with relatives, but Ombe and Tumlaki, the 2 middle children, ended up living at Huruma Center at the orphanage where they were cared for. Boma and Gumbay has always chosen to continue to provide scholarships out of the funds to the Mponzi children. And so first of all, there was Ombe. Ombe passed Form 6, did very well, and then requested a scholarship from Huruma Center to go to the Alula Nursing School, which I believe he is now finished. And then he just shared with me a couple weeks ago that his sister Tumlaki also finished Form 6, did very well, and has now been accepted at the University of Dar es Salaam for a degree in education. So wonderful news. And the baby Enzi is now a Form 1 student that we're sponsoring at Image. So exciting news there. Finally, in terms of prayer requests, we have a number of different prayer requests that came up during our Zoom call. First of all is prayers for continued strength and growth of our partnership. Also health and safety due to COVID. They pray for us weekly that COVID will go away. COVID has definitely reached Tanzania and Iringa. Everybody knows people who have died of COVID or who had COVID. In the village, Pastor Tuwele said that they haven't had much incident of it. They've been not shaking hands, they've been using hand sanitizer, trying to be careful that way, and they're definitely praying for us. We also, of course, want prayers for our students that are sponsored. We also have individual prayer partners. And then we have a number of joint projects that we share. And one of the nice things about the email is that we've been able to share progress. So some of the joint projects, in addition, we've heard about the building projects, we've gotten to see pictures. Pastor Tuwele occasionally posts pictures on his Facebook page, so I get a chance to pull some of those down. They also share there's a widow's goat project. The goats are doing well, but they're asking for prayers because they'd like for the goats to have more babies, and they're not increasing as fast as they had hoped. Also, the Women's Batik Group for Women's Economic Development, they're making high quality batiks, as you can see on the paraments here, but they are running into some challenges finding market for those, so there's prayers for that. And then they also shared that the Women's Batik Group is also now expanding out to growing, I believe it's potatoes and corn. So they're looking for other ways to earn an income. We've also been sharing some of the joys and the challenges here at Prince of Peace. I've been describing a lot about our outdoor services and our Christmas service last year where it was 20 degrees below zero and we were all out in the parking lot. Or our art in the parking lot, just different ways where we keep connected. And I've also been, sharing the COVID challenges as well as some of the challenges we've been having, like with the leaking roof. And so, they continue to pray for our needs as we pray for theirs. And I'd like to show you a brief excerpt that I think we thought was pretty special from our Zoom call. So, Chris, if you want to switch over to the video. Okay, let me stop sharing. When the video goes, you'll see people from Bumble and Gumbay, and then you'll also see the person doing the translating is Pastor Luila. He's the coordinator of Bega over in the Iringa Diocese. So he's the one that did all the translating. And you'll also see the in-country coordinators of Ryan and Estine Bose, who are over there now, supporting Bega.
Conclusion. We thank you very much for you to share with us on your plan of renovating the church.
One moment. It's playing. We now need the audio so you can hear it.
We join.
This gives me a chance to. Okay. What's that? Keep talking. It also gives me a little bit of a chance to drink some water. Yeah. It's been. And so up in our cloud of saints there, you'll see the name Anderson. That's Anderson Mdeki, who was our longtime parish coordinator, and he was amazing. We would come and we'd bring like all these T-shirts and backpacks and things for the kids.
Conclusion.
And I'd go and say, okay, these are how many things we have. Here's how many small, medium, large. How should we give them away? And he'd come back and he'd go, okay, so this time we're going to go to 2 primary schools. We're going to give away the T-shirts there. There's going to be 73 there. Here you've got this many t-shirts and this many backpacks, so we'll let them pick and it'll be 54. So he just had a real wonderful uh, feel for the needs of the community and really had a strong awareness of that. Okay.
Conclusion. We thank you very much for you to share with us on your plan of renovating the church. We join you by giving to you 6 pieces of batik. So these are the batiks which they want to give to you so that you can sell there to get the money for the roofing of your church, including ceiling. Thank you for all things which we have been doing together. We have been praying on each other, giving gifts on each other, and visiting. We expect when the COVID situation comes low, we expect to see you at Bomalago. We are praying so that this partnership can become more strong, so that we can continue to build the kingdom of God. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like chokes me up every time I see that. Just the generosity and the love that is behind that generosity. The partnership is truly, it really truly is a mutual partnership, shoulder to shoulder, and can't wait to go back. So in conclusion, and kind of depending on how much time we have, I may have time for a couple of questions. As I mentioned, this normally would be our Tanzania Dinner Scholarship fundraiser. So no dinner, but the chai mandazis and the pitch. So we are looking to raise money for scholarships. Our goal is to raise at least $12,000. What that's going to go towards is scholarships. As I mentioned, the average one is $400. We also have provided the Scholarship Equity Program and the post-secondary as able. We also have a history of providing some small Christmas gifts for the pastors and evangelists to help supplement their income a bit. Also, part of the funds that we raise go towards Bega fee support, and this is a really important thing because this is a massive initiative and requires a lot of people and a lot of props to help keep it strong and make sure that there's proper accountability. So it goes to help support the accounting and Ryan and Esteen over in Iringa and Peter Harretts. So part of it goes to support the overall Bega initiative and make sure that it runs well. And then, as excess funds come in, we also use it to support other projects like building projects for the pastor's house. So there's a couple of different ways to donate. One, of course, is online. There's an entry there for Tanzania Mission. If you do want to do a check that either you drop off here at church or in the mail, just write Tanzania in the memo and we'll get it there. We won't make you try to spell the Swahili names. But once again, we really appreciate the partnership that this has, and we appreciate the support of Prince of Peace. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without the support of many, many members of Prince of Peace. I'm kind of remembering some of the saints that have come before us. When we formed the partnership with Vakangwa, Judy Florine handed me a check and said, they're going to need some seed money to start. And when we'd go on trips and needed to help support some of the funds for the pastors, Val Hansen generally gave a donation, said, I can't travel anymore, but I want to be able to help those who still can. and many, many others have really provided so much support, both their time and their talents. Barb Lyman used to really help, she ran the Tanzania dinner in the past. So all the saints that have come before us. Thank you to Prince of Peace, and thank you for the partnership. So at this point, I think we've got maybe time for a couple questions. Gary.
Just wondering, there's a lot going on, there are a lot of good things, and so it's a lot to support. But I'm wondering also about the schools. Are they church-sponsored schools locally, or are they public schools?
Great. So the question from Gary was asking about the schools, whether they're church-sponsored or public or what. So it's a combination. There are 6 schools that are sponsored and managed by the Iringa Diocese in Tanzania, and that's where most of our scholarship students go. There also are becoming more and more government schools. That wasn't the case when we first began, but there are now more government schools, and so some congregations like Roseville, a lot of their students do go to a local government school as well, which the fees aren't quite as high, but there still are fees involved. So it is a combination. There's also an initiative by the Synod for school building projects. We don't have one currently going on right now, but what they were finding was that people would go over, they would see a need, they would give a small amount of money to start something at a school, it would get started, and then no more money. So a couple years ago, the Synod started another fund for capital projects where it's like, okay, we are going to finish a lab at Lutengilo. We are going to, no, I don't want to scan now. We are, so there, here's a lab at Lutengilo, or we're finishing the multi-purpose room at Mtera so that it can provide real focused support. Good question. Rick?
What's the source of income for the congregants?
Yeah, so the question is the source of income for the congregates. It's primarily subsistence farming. So in the village, pretty much everybody has a farm or a garden of some sort. And then it's small business. So it's small shops. We heard in 2019, the Iringa Hope provides microfinance for business. And so one of the Iringa Hope loan recipients was a man who said that he noticed that there was nobody in Gumbay that was selling electronics. So he got there was nobody selling electronics, like cell phone chargers and things like that, which cell phones are really prevalent. And so he got a small microfinance loan, and he was able to use that and build more in the business, and so his business is going very well. So it's like small farmers and small storeholders primarily. Good question. Yeah. Other questions? Gary?
Yeah, I have one about the business centers. And I'm wondering if the church retains ownership of the property and perhaps the buildings in the business centers, and then the owners or operators pay a rent? Is that how that works?
That's a good question. The business center was something new since we last went there, so it's one we want to dig into a little bit more when we get there. My suspicion is that the church owns the property and owns the building, and then provides rent. So the church does have some property that they can use for some of that. And then there's the cell phone towers, which I think also help generate some income, because at least one of them is right on the church property. So they are looking for areas to increase the income there too. Great.
Did you mention the road?
Yeah, I did mention the road. So the other thing that I think is going to really help is the road from Bega to Bumble. The road was very dirt. It was very unusual for us to make the trip from Iringa to Bumble without getting the bus stuck at least once. And especially there was this one little dip in the road. We can show you pictures. But hopefully this will make the whole transportation much more smoothly, because Boma is a really good growing area, and Boma Village has a really good growing area, and so the hope with a better road is there will be better ways to get their crops into town. And Aringa Hope actually just created a market center, which is a very, very massive warehouse where people will be able to aggregate their crops, and it's going to be right next to one of the main highways in Aringa, so they'll have easy access to shipping as well. So that's also really exciting as well.
Well, nutrition in the country, are people will fit by Mars?
Yeah, so the question is about nutrition in the country, and I think it varies. It varies from location to location based on whether there's good water sources and not. There's some areas that are really poverty-stricken. Boma, Gumbay village is a good growing area, so I would say less there. Now, it's primarily plant-based. We get a lot of chicken, goat, and pig when we go there, but it's fairly unusual for meat to be a regular part of the meal. Peter was.
Does anyone from there come here?
Yeah, so Peter asked if anybody from Tanzania comes over here. There have been some congregations that have brought pastors or other leaders here. We had some guests that we're associated with because of our goddaughter came, I think that was 2017 or 2018, that came over, and they kind of took a tour of Prince of Peace. We actually do have some funds set aside from a donation for some point in the future to bring. We'd love to bring some people from Bumble and Gumbay and Bega over here, and then COVID hit. But that is a goal today. We'd love to bring some of the Tanzanians over here as well.
And the diocese has sent two pastors to study the seminary.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. The Aringa Diocese, in connection with Luther Seminary, sponsored scholarships for two pastors from Aringa to come study at Luther Seminary. Last year they studied remotely in the middle of the night because it was all online. But then this year they're over here. So hopefully this year before they get back, we'll be able to arrange for them to come and speak to us, because one pastor in Sigwa was our translator a couple times, and he's wonderful. Jean.
Just COVID related, you said that you're taking care, and are vaccinations or shots getting there too?
Yeah, so the question is about COVID, taking precautions. Vaccines are available, and some people are getting them. There also is, just like we have here, there's also some vaccine hesitancy, some concerns. Some of it's based in colonialism. Do you trust things? But we have heard from a couple of colleagues over there that they have been able to get one of the vaccines. I'm not sure which one. They are still meeting in person. They're not taking, and masks are not all that universal. They do have the advantage of really good ventilation, which is a nice way of saying that there's not a lot of insulation, and there's airflow in some of there. But they've managed to, in the village, to stay mostly healthy. But in the towns, it's much more prevalent. There was a recent Wall Street Journal article about Tanzania and some of the challenges that they're facing there. Great. Just looking, so I think we're at our crossover time. Once again, thank you everybody for your time and attention, and thank you for your support.